Right. I'm live.
For coming. Our video recorders are on. It's not, well, it's live for Tim, so welcome Tim. But for everybody else who wants to watch it, it will be a pre-recorded like it was last year. And just so that the audience don't have to get too worried, there won't be any audience participation because only the committee members will be on the screen. So, Tim is Tim Schneider, who is our international committee member from Germany, and I'll talk a few words about him slightly later on. One thing I just need to mention is I've had a right eye operation, and I do have to close my right eye occasionally. So please don't think I'm winking at you. But anyway, so let's carry on. for absence.
Okay, so I've had apologies from Kimari, Fernando, Rene van der Berg, Harvey and Werner Bernard, Terry and Gaynor Bailey, Robert Harris, David and Fran Ritson, James Bedford Russell, Alison and Robin Barclay, Julian Brown, Danny Smith, Tony Wakeman, Sam Crossley, Margaret and Jim Brett.
Thank you. Minutes of last year's AGM, which was the first in 3 due to COVID. I hope everybody has had an opportunity to see them, should they so wish, and accept that they are an accurate transcription of what we discussed. So, if everybody's happy, could I have somebody to propose and somebody to second that it's a true record? Seconder, somebody? Lovely, thank you very much. Matters arising. There are a number of updates that I need to give, and there is the topic of subscription that I need to expand on. I don't intend to take them now, because if I do now, it will be out of context. What I really need is I need to do those after the Treasurer has given her report, after Linda's given the report, because otherwise it won't make sense. So the matters arising I'll deal with later. The same thing I'll do what I've always done with the Commodore's report. I will pick up the bits and pieces as I go along, but when I write it up, it will be under the Commodore's report on the topics that I've elaborated on. But just 2 things I'd like to say in that part. First of all, I'd like to thank yourselves and all the membership for all that you've done for us, because without yourselves, we wouldn't have an association. And my second thanks is to your committee members, because without them, it wouldn't work. So, if I can leave the rest a slightly later on. Jeff, yourself.
Okay. Got a lot to say really. It's just for the last year I've been operating the classified page where we got on the website to sell members' fishes. Currently we have 15 fishes on that page for sale. Boats ranging from 25 to 37. One of those happens to be for sale in New Zealand, if anyone wants to go. We had one non-member paying 3 years worth of that membership, which take that on. Other than that, it's running quite smoothly. Alan will go in with more details on that after. The other thing I'm arranging is the 55th anniversary. Bookings are going quite well on that at the moment. 19 fishes booked in currently, which is on par to 2018, when I was sorting out the 50th anniversary, which sadly got cancelled due to that COVID thing. It's been basically on the same format, using Cowie's Yacht Haven and the Royal Yacht Squadron. Possibly around about 55 people will be in attendance at the moment. Hopefully that will probably double in the next year. The dates for this is 30th of June to the 3rd of July 2025, if anyone's interested in giving you details for that. I think that pretty much covers where I'm at with that.
Great, thanks. Anybody want to ask Jeff anything? No? Excellent. Right. Okay. Linda, Treasurer's report, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank Tony, who, as ever, on your behalf, has reviewed the accounts for us. He's now membership, we've had a few more associate members and not so many of them have taken on full membership, which either means they found another type of boat or they've given up the idea of sailing anyway. So that's fairly standard. Now then, most people like to pay by PayPal, and there are charges involved in that to the association. This year they're coming to 274, which although PayPal put up their charges, it actually comes out slightly less last year because business members new. So that sort of sums up PayPal. Although we would like other methods, so we didn't incur the charge, it just, for worldwide members, it's their own way of paying economically to join the association. So we feel we can't change that. That needs to stay. Now, advertising on the income last year was £125, which is upon the year before. The merchandising sales were down on last year, down at £88. I think that's because the year before, through COVID, everybody was stocking up ready for when we could all get back afloat, and we had a good year the year before. Income and rallies, well, that's sort of has come back in. We are able to do the events now, in the actual balance sheet, when anybody looks, it might be slightly confusing, so I'm going to explain it. We actually had to pay a prepayment last year of £495. Now that effectively is moved into this year, but some people paid, thank you, early before the end of our financial year. So that has been the £495 has been netted off by the payments that I have received for the AGM, which only leaves us with an AGM prepayment of £88. And some of you might have wondered why it was so little this year, but that is the general way we do it. We just had some very keen people this year, that's all. The insurance was much the same. The website will be covered shortly. The costs we actually had £1,068 on the website support. That is a lot lower than last year because with the software development we were doing, some of the costs that we would have been having didn't occur because of the development. So, but there again, we have higher development costs of £8,859. So, postage, well, that covers a 2-year period because postage didn't go through in time last year. Now, the rest of the expenditure is really as I would have expected to see it. And we finish with a loss of the year of £6,837. That is purely and simply because of the website development. And that was necessary. We have to keep that up to date. And it's something that's worldwide that everybody can enjoy. But as you know, this is going to deal with that. Now this leaves the association in a positive position of £7,840 as at 31st of August this current year. So that's where we are. And because we know that there is ongoing website support, we have insurance and other things, we have felt it necessary, unfortunately, to make that small increase in the subs. So I hope you all understand. Any questions? Anybody would like to inspect the books? They are perfectly willing to do so if they are here with me. Okay? Thank you.
So, any questions for Linda? I will be covering website costs and subscription in a second. So, if everybody's happy with treasurer support, can I have a proposer and a seconder? you're all happy with it? Okay. Okay. If I just go back a little bit with regards to the website, got our website, the FOA website, up and running, and did a fabulous job. And it was 15 years ago that Al and myself were asked to take on the website, and essentially Derek joined us 12 years ago, and we put a lot of effort and a lot of money into that website. And I think Tony's comments, where he quoted to me that the website is the FOA, because it is. Without the website, it wouldn't be what it is today, and so I think it's okay. I think it's probably the envy of quite a lot of our sister sailing organisations. I've said previously that we seem to attract a big bill about every 5 years, and the way the running costs seem to have gone over the last 5 years plus, since we moved from Hugo or Popple to Blue Frontier, is that we roughly spend a minimum of £2,000 a year on just routine IT costs. And by that's routine software updates, which are done quarterly automatically. It's charging for hosting, charging for backups. The website, for your interest, is backed up on a daily basis, and that's obviously is a good thing if you can afford it. So we've gone for the top end of the market for all the bits and pieces, so that it does work well. So it works out at roughly £2,000 minimum. What we've been historically, Derek and myself and Al, we've been allowing, for sake of argument, about £1,500 every year on development to get it to where we want it to be. So our IT costs is a minimum of about £3,500 per annum. The reason we've been low for the last 2 years, one was because 2 years ago, because we knew we were heading for a big build, so there was no development costs. And then last year, we got away with not having 2 of the 3 monthly quarterly updates because of the big refresh that we had. So we're back into the £3,500 roughly split to 1,500, rough split, as our annual costs for the future. However, our IT, as per everything else in the last couple of years, everything's gone up. Our IT costs have gone up by 20%. And that happened over the summer sometime. So we were notified of the new quarterly charges, and it's roughly a 20% increase. So when I just say that 3,500 is what you need to budget for, I'm afraid you need to now budget for 4,500, give or take, if you're going to be able to cover the routine stuff, which has gone up, and of course development costs, because there will always be some development costs that you'll want to do some bits and pieces, which we can't do ourselves. We do a lot of stuff ourselves, but there's a certain amount that you can't do. It's just too complicated. So that's where we are IT-wise, and that's how the money has been spent, and why we ended up with the big bill last year, which, as we discussed when I did the AGM last year, I had 2 quotes, and as we put it in the afternote, we managed to get it done for a considerably lower fee, which was great. So we are where we are now financially, which is not too bad. But you will have, I can promise you, you will have another big IT bill in the future. It's just the way things work. And it seems to be, it works out about every 5 years you'll have a big bill. My advice is to the committee is that I think you need to work on that bill being in the order in, say, 5 years' time, of between £10,000 and £15,000, because that's what it will roughly be, unless you're able to manage some other way. So, financially wise, we're okay, but we need to save for a big bill that will come in the future of that sort of order. So that's where we are with regards to that. But then that links into annual subscriptions. Now we talked quite a lot length last year about that, and you kindly gave us authority to up it, and you gave me a pretty big range, which was what I asked for, and I said we would keep it as low as possible. Well, we managed to get the IT down to obviously a reasonable bill, and we are where we are now cost-wise. But over the summer, the committee had a discussion, and we decided that we couldn't keep the costs as they were for the future, because we were going to run into trouble with a view to future IT expenditure. And so the outcome of that was an agreement that we would put the subs up, so a full member would go up from 25 to 30, and an associate member from 15 to 20. And we would do it now so that it would allow the committee and yourselves and the organisation to build up enough for this future, and to cover any reasonable costs that were going to come our way. That was the absolute minimum that we could put it up. What will happen in the future, who knows? But we considered it as probably the optimum and the best solution going forward. So, is everybody happy with that?
It's still very, very little money.
Well, that was why everybody present last year were happy to allow me this huge range of a doubling. So a 20%, which seems to be the going rate that everybody's talking about, was the absolute minimum, I think, and it's because it has been those figures, the 25 and 15 for full and associate, has been present since 1993, which was when the FO8, when this organisation started, that was what we charged. So I think it's a pretty good exchange rate. And,
are we going to lose members if we raise it?
That's a good question.
In long term, as you say, the website and its effectiveness is really important for this worldwide organisation. And Ian has been doing the web management and the contractor's charge. But that has to be a very effective service for the future. And I wonder if the room would feel it reasonable to have a significant increase. We haven't even got a budget for next year, but you mentioned some of the figures. But they're going to go up, and I'm worried that we are too careful as opposed to building up some reserves. Because if you build reserves, you can deal with the problems. But frankly, £5,000 is not a lot of a reserve. Sorry, that's a chartered accountant speaking with Tony's guidance.
We had a good debate about that last year, and it was if we put it up, will we lose members and things like that, and yes, there are two schools of thought. You put up the minimum amount, or you go and do double it, because as you know, it's been £25 for what, 30 years? Is it 30 years? 30 years. So what was £25 30 years ago? It's probably 50 nowadays, whatever. So it is an option, and I think somebody mentioned about other subscriptions which were equally high. So you could go either way, and we debated this at great length, and we decided to do nothing Obviously, because we didn't have that information about the cost of the IT bill, and that has turned out to be quite fortuitous because stealing Derek's thunder a little bit, we now know who didn't renew last year. So, for sake of argument, what percentage didn't renew?
There were 88 non-renewals
Okay, so
last year.
88
out of 300.
non-renewals. So if we had put up the subscriptions at last year's AGM from 25 to 50, and we've got 88 people didn't renew, then the natural assumption will be the 88 didn't renew because we put the subscriptions up. So that would be, you can make that association. Do you want to cover what the 88 did?
Oh, I wasn't going to do it in detail.
Well, because I asked Derek this exact question was, of those 88, why didn't they renew? So I was actually quite interested. Almost all the full members who didn't renew because they sold their fisher. Some of them didn't survive, but it was all didn't. They sold their fisher, and of the associates, the reason they didn't renew was because they didn't buy a fisher. So we can quite safely say that that association, which we would have made, isn't relevant. And so anyway, we made the decision that we would go for a small amount, and we put it up because you gave us permission, so that anybody who started in the 1st of October would be paid the new rates. So it's gone up to 30 and 20, and if we need to go in the future, we'll be in a good position in the future.
I just wanted to say, what about doing a small increase every year for so many years? Would that be another one?
Well, absolutely. I think what we wanted to do this year was, it was very obvious with a big bill that we had, which if it had been £12,000, we would have been, we would have had sandwiches for supper. So it went down to 8, but you're not going to get small IT bills. But we're okay, but we need to build up for the future. So therefore, let's do a small increase now. Let's review the situation next year. You'll see how much, because you will have gone back to routine IT costs. So that could be sort of £4,000, give or take. You'll know how much you've saved. So we're at what, 8,000 now, give or take?
Sorry, in the bank.
In the bank.
As at today,
As
as
at
at the end, as at today. No, it's not that.
7,000.
Because we're just about to pay another blueprint here. Is there any more to pay for here today? It will be just over 6.
Okay, so we've got 6,000 today. So when you come back next year, if you're now at £9,000 in the bank, then you're doing not badly. If you're 7,500, maybe you will be having this discussion again, and perhaps it ought to be, annually. But at least we've started, and we've started with the minimum amount, and let's see how we go. We shouldn't frighten anybody, because £30 shouldn't break too many banks. It's only a £5 increase, but at least we got over the start line, and let's see how it titrates out.
I think when we're talking about subscriptions, Chris, it's too easy to focus on how much we pay. I think one of the things we need to focus on is how much we get out of the organisation for that money. Because I certainly save 2 or 3 times my subscription every year, just on advice I pick up from the forum and the newsletters and from contact with other members and sections. So, I'm not convinced that we get a high fall off in numbers if arguing that we shouldn't reduce substantially, but if it went to 35 or 40, I don't think we'd lose many members at all because it's
Chris.
too valuable a resource.
Could I make a suggestion? We've got two chartered accountants here. I'd like to invite them to comment. Tony, Fritz?
I'm the ex-treasurer. I'm not a chartered accountant.
You I apologise.
I'm a company secretary. We have our own chartered institute. It involves a lot of accountancy, just the same. I think the mistake we've made, it's fairly obvious from what you're saying, is that we should have increased more steadily over the years. And then it wouldn't have been such large jumps we now need. And I think going forward, certainly we should make a realistic increase now. And then it's looked at perhaps every third year or however you want to play it. But you really, to keep the standard of everything going well on the website, and everyone benefits from it, not just those who go to the rallies, that's what it's going to cost. And I think they're getting very good value for money, as our friend over there just said.
Thank you. Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. Fritz?
Well, I agree with Tony totally. I think the value that a member gets is fantastic. Information on the website, the communality of ourselves, and in relation to what we pay for running our boats, frankly, it's completely bloody irrelevant. So, you know, I would go for £50 and build up our reserves, because in particular, managing that website, Steve does a fantastic amount of work on Fisher Light, but we rely an awful lot of the work on the committee. So I would really like to see some money there, enabling them to do specifications for promoting ourselves in a marketing wise for what the values are. And I think £50 is something that, and every year it just goes up with inflation. That would be my proposal. But I mean, you might ask the room what they feel.
Thank you.
Anybody want to comment? Yeah. Chris? I think an increase in subscriptions is needed. I think going up to 50 in one hit, I think is a big jump from 25. I think that will put a lot of people off. As a counter suggestion, I think I'd like to suggest that we increase the subscriptions as per the recommendation by £5 as per plan. But in addition, anybody that wants to make a voluntary contribution to the association, let's say of an additional £10, would be gratefully received.
Well, I think I shall use the chairman's prerogative recording a line underneath this, because I've got a feeling this could go on all the time. But it is a question for the committee to discuss, and in next year you can bring forward whatever proposals you wish, and at least you'll be in a position to see what effect the £5 increase has done, what effect it has had on subscriptions and people renewing, and you'll be able to see what your financial status is and whether it is much improved or not. And you'll also have a good idea of, and Alan will have a good idea of IT costs.
Yeah.
So you'll be in a better position to judge all the parameters next year, and the options are all there.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I just ask one question? You know, you said that 88 boats were sold, and that's why, well, most of it was because people said, did any of those people that bought the boats, did they become members or not?
Yes, we get new members for sure, and one of the discussions that the committee will be having tomorrow is how to encourage the new members to become new owners to become members. And one of the couple of things we've been talking about is, could you? So I'm selling to Derek. I tell Derek about the FOA and say, it's a fabulous organisation, you ought to join, and he perhaps gets a year's free introductory membership or something.
Yeah.
Or
something along those lines, rather than just saying here's the address. And if he's a new boat owner, he's not going to necessarily know too much as to what the real benefits are. So probably better to give him a membership ticket and see how he goes.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we're going to talk about tomorrow. But yeah, you're quite right.
Just back to the donation, would it be too much? Because this is a subscription. If it's a donation with the RNLI, if you send a donation, you get another whack on getting back tax, or is that just too much effort?
I think that would apply for a charity, but not.
Yeah, it's got to be a charity for that.
Not for an association such as ourselves.
Could I make a suggestion? I rather like Rod's idea of a voluntary donation. Also, I noticed that a lot of people pay by PayPal, and that costs money. If you're going to pay by PayPal, would you be prepared to add on the cost of the PayPal to your subscription, so that we, the association, don't have to carry that? And B, if you did want to make a donation, pay a bit more on your subscription. I'm a member of the HMS Fiscard Association, and our annual subscription is about 10 quid, I think. But you can pay as much as you like in, and some people pay £100 a year because they feel it's a good thing. I'm not saying you should pay £100 a year, but if we're going to be paying, what do we say for a full member was going up to £30, wasn't it?
Yeah, 25 to 30.
So there's nothing to stop you from saying, I'm going to pay my FOA bill and I'm going to stick another 20 or another 10 on, or whatever you choose, or you're just going to pay it, and there's no pressure on you to pay anymore. But if you value the association, and I'm not trying to blackmail you, but if you value the association, perhaps you'd like to stick a bit more in the pot.
Options for the future.
Options.
You're saying that to this room of people.
Yeah.
That would it go out to further people? Because people in here might say yes, but how do you let other people know?
Quite simple. You put it on the forum and you put it in Fisher-Light. And as the newsletter editor, with the approval of the committee, then I would be very happy to put something into Fisher-Light and onto the forum to suggest that. And no one's being told you've got to pay more money. All we're saying is that you know what the bills are, you know how much it costs. This is how much it is a year. It's only gone up a teeny weeny bit since 1993. But if you would like to pay a bit more, you're more than welcome to do so. Charles?
I think Chris's suggestion of a free first year's membership is excellent, because when I look back to when I first bought my Freewood, that first year until I discovered the association, I really struggled for information. Mm-hmm. If you give somebody free for the first year, they'll realise what good value it is, and you've probably got it for the rest of the road.
Mm.
Uncomplicated, they just get the membership.
Yeah. Can we minute?
Okay, right.
Can we minute that?
Sorry, of course you can. Okay, Secretary's report.
Right, okay. Just carrying on a little bit from where we were there. I obviously have contact with everybody who's a member, and the group here is a very small portion of that. There's a large number of people out there who are fairly inactive. They want to be members, and I also come across people who do doubt whether they want to pay the money to join. So any increase is going to be affecting people who are a long way away from this sort of group of people. So yeah, I think a big increase could be detrimental. And of the people who didn't renew, about 50, Chris mentioned the reasons for it, about 50% of the people who didn't renew didn't tell me why, they just didn't renew, so I don't know why. But anyway, having said that, I'm pleased to say our current membership is 330, 77 of which are associate members. That's actually down slightly on last year's, which was at the end of the year was 357. Okay, we're not at the end of the year yet. I expect probably another 10 before the end of the year. But we are getting over the COVID bubble. We had a huge bubble in 22 and 21. In 2019, at the end of the year, we had 312, so we're up on the end of 19, which was pre-COVID. So we're doing well there. What has increased significantly is the outside UK membership, which is now 135, 41%, and 44 of those are in North America. So we have a significant North American membership. The next largest sort of contingent is the Western European countries, Netherlands, France and Germany. Spread around the UK, we've got 39 in the East region, 53 in the Southwest, in the South and Channel Islands, 32 in the Southwest, and 71 in Scotland and North. So there's a lot of people up in the north there. Where one has one's events, one may need to think along those lines. As a secretary, my main job seems to be communications. I hope everyone finds communications work well. If anybody has any suggestions that one can communicate with membership better, I'd be very pleased to hear. And one final note on the subs increase. Anybody who pays by standing orders, please can they update their standing order? Payment online by PayPal is easy. We just switch over to making it £30 or £20. If you're paying by a standing order, and a significant number of people still do, I mean I do, you're going to have to go in and change that to standing order. Otherwise, I'm going to be chasing you, and I don't want to do that.
Okay, lovely. Right.
Chris, can I just ask
yeah,
Chris, Jeff may be the person best able to answer it, but do we know how many fishers there are still in the world, or how many were built, and we could take a stab at
We've got an idea there was 1,200 approximately built.
Right.
We know there's been quite a few boats lost over the years, including 2 46s.
Right.
And how many 30s have been lost along the way, and various others. But of course, in that 1,200, there's also a range of commercial craft built as well. So if we could say there was actually 800 actual fishers built, then we've got a lot of people to find to be members. So there's a lot of scope out there. We've got a lot of people to find.
and the number of full members in the UK has remained remarkably constant for the last couple of
So as
decades.
long as I've been doing it, I can tell you. In 2008, the full membership in the UK was 139. In 2015, it was 150. And we've currently got 156. That's UK full membership. So it really doesn't change very much.
Yes, and we don't know how many were exported, do we?
According to Dave Scarn, it was about 60%. So there's a lot in America to be found.
Yeah.
But from my figures, there's roughly about 250 in the UK. So there's still quite a few UK members to be located. There's a lot of boats went into Europe, which they're all starting to now come out. North Americans are starting to find our site and join in droves. And I think if we keep pushing forward, we'll eventually find them all.
The theme here, it's been throughout the last decade or so, is the importance of our overseas members.
And so our membership within the UK has remained very, very static or very no great increases, but it's the increase in the overseas members that has made the difference over the last 10, 15 years and likely to increase. So our orientation of the website and the organisation to looking outward is crucial, and therefore, for that reason, the appointment of Tim as our first international committee member is, I think, a great step forward, and who knows where this will lead to. And as more and more overseas owners and associates join us, I think this organisation, we need to look to ways to include them. And I think that's going to be the exciting part of the organisation. Okay, right.
Another one.
Well, for overseas, we used to keep our boat in France, and whenever we came across a fisher, we would go and talk to them.
Yeah.
And they loved their boat, but of course they spoke just French, and so they weren't interested in looking at the Fisher Association. So I just wondered if there are any translations or anything for overseas who don't speak it.
Have the website in in different languages as well, so that possibly, like I think the Dutch do it.
There are all ways of doing this, and this is where Tim, and he talks to all, or communicates with all new overseas members. He has links, particularly with his German colleagues and the Dutch, as does Jeff. So encouraging these hotspots, or not necessarily hotspots of fishers, to come our way. I think it is working. The statistics would say that. How you go out to them and how you find them, of course, is much more complicated, other than almost by word of mouth, or their interest to find. It's like a classic car. If you've got a, dare I say, an Alvis, and you just happen to find one in your garage, then the first thing you probably look up is Alvis Owners Association in any language. I think word of mouth is most important, as we do seem to get around a bit.
Got something in there? Over the last few years, we ran a rally with the Dutch to Middelburg, brilliant, 2015. The people who went really enjoyed it, and we got a really good connection with our Dutch friends. And so far, I've run 2 D-Day rallies to Ouistreham and Caen, again with 1 or 2 French owners who come in, but making a connection with the Yacht Club de Caen, and adding another foreign flavour to that. We have another D-Day rally happening June next year, and we're hoping to get more and more in there. And we are in touch with Yves Layani, who's a very famous TV vet who owns a Fisher 30 called Apache. And so we talk to him from time to time, but you're right. I think there's more we could do in France, certainly, and we have a good connection with Germany and Holland. So we are moving in the right direction, and I'd love to be able to do more.
The opportunity of the 55th in 2025 is excellent. And one of our original concepts was to have the cows every decade. So a 40th, we didn't have the 50th, so the 55th. But what we tried to do was to have a overseas rally in the 5 years in between. Hence, we did Middelburg in 2015. So I think that is a way of exporting us and choosing our countries, and perhaps the intermediate one in whenever it is, whatever 5 years works. You could almost say that Steve's D-Day one acts as one as well. So I think doing those gives the international flavour, and it can only be beneficial. It's got to be. Sorry.
say that I joined the Dutch fisher owners a while ago. I've unjoined them there a couple of years. Their site is in English and Dutch, so that's quite useful. And met some people and they jumped on theirs and went round this year. It was Southern Holland, people appeared out in the woodwork. But it's really good. It is like, not an Alvis, but you know, it's like a piece of car.
Okay, great. Website report.
Thank you, Chris. Well, that's made good listening, hasn't it? Prior to what I'm going to say. I took over the content management in March this year, and content management means the stuff that we actually put onto the website. And that's been quite a steep learning curve, and I actually took over from Chris on the general management and the relationship with Blue Frontier from June, so it's fairly early days. What I'd like to say first of all, though, is about the members' survey, the web survey that you might recall from the beginning of this year, January, February time. It's quite a lengthy document, and we're actually going to discuss it at the committee meeting tomorrow, because there's quite a number of outcomes from that. We had 247 responses to it, which is excellent. 96% of members are using the website, and as has been said, it is clearly a vital asset to this association. Within that, the boat data itself that's been accumulated over a long time is clearly the gem, and that's what people want to get at. Half of the respondents were wanting actually better information or a better search function, enabling, if you put a query into the website, actually being able to get the right answers. Not necessarily the answers you want to read, but the answers that are there in the website itself. Members want more pictures, more videos, but of course that's up to us, up to you, to be posting stuff. And a lot of what comes in is actually going into Steve in Fisher Light. And so one of the things I've been doing over the last 6 months or so is trying to improve the visibility, the way in which those topics, those articles, that information can be searched and found. And Fisher Light clearly has a very key role as an input, a source of more information, up-to-date information about what we are doing. And the other thing that is clear is that the classified section is very well used and valued. The current situation is, as I said about this content management, I've had to get used to the system which manages it. And as far as I can see at the moment, we don't have complete access to it. For example, the last couple of weeks, Brian sent me a note to say that details of the terms and conditions weren't, although they're in the library, that if you clicked on the link on the home page, it found the old version. And I've had to really dig, and I've had to ask Blue Frontier how I get to that. But a couple of days ago, I followed their instructions, found it, and it's now up to date. So there's a fair bit of learning going on. As I've said, the classified section is very valuable, and it's very useful in promoting the Fisher Owners Association. Why is that? Because if you advertise a boat on there, and if you then, or if another, an interested party, puts in a search for a Fisher motor sailor, for a Fisher 25, and we've got one for sale on the classified site, anybody can find that. So the more boats we put out for sale, the better promotion we get of the FOA, and more people find our site. Remember that. In the last year, we've had, well, in fact, since I took over, but the period within my management, if you like, I'm going back to this, although I said I took over in March. Live adverts that I have been monitoring go back to June 22, and since then we've had 15 boats for sale. Jeff receives the details of the boats that are for sale, and then he sends them to me, and then I post them up. One of the things I've managed to do, because previously you could only put one photograph on there. Well, I've managed to find a fudge so that we could probably put 3 or 4, because I can combine them, make a composite picture on there, depending on the quality of the photographs and so forth. So we're able to improve that. As I said, if you search for a Fisher 2534 or whatever on Google, at the moment, the other day anyway, we were sitting on page 2, because in front of us there's a Apollo Duck and Boats and Outboards and every other broker as well in front. So one of the things that I'm looking at is how Google finds our advertisements. They're called tags and meta tags, metadata. So I'm looking to improve that. So a few months ago, it was actually down on page 3. So whether it's down to me or whether something else has changed, I'm not quite sure. But we're moving up in the right direction. The second busiest page we have is the events and rallies. The hits that we've been getting on there are good. There's some historic data that throws it out. But anyway, members that are using the website and are actively involved in rallies are finding the stuff on there as well. So that's good. Remember I said that members wanted more photographs and videos. We've got a gallery section. It ain't used. And I think one of the problems with that is it's not easy to actually post stuff up onto it. So we'll pass on that at the moment. The forum is another busy place. Derek runs that. The stats on the forum are apparently not easy to extract, but I can tell you that from the survey, 79% of members use the forum. So again, that is very valuable. What we have to bear in mind, though, that you're only going to find that information if you're a member. And so if a non-member wants to find out information about fishers, they go on Google and search for stuff, they won't be finding what is hidden behind our paywall, if you like, behind the subscription, the login. And that's one of the things I want to deal with at the committee meeting tomorrow, and how we can actually improve that. The library, and this is really the gem, has 376 documents in it. A member posted on the forum recently, between the forum and the library there's a great deal of useful information, but it's not easy to get at. And that is exactly what I want to address. And that was, again, strongly reflected in the survey results. Now, I know that a lot of work's gone on manually to improve those tags in the past, but there's nothing in the metadata, which is, again, what you see if you do a search for something, when you get that little paragraph up telling you the results of the information, that's, again, where we need to improve matters. I looked at some analysis of those 376 documents. And for example, 52 pages have not had one view, not even discounting the views of the authors or the web editor posting on there. 203 documents have had no hits whatsoever. I'm sorry, 52 have had one view. 203 have had no hits. The top hit was Fisher 25 Dorvik, which has been on there since April 2014. It's had 52 hits. So there's a tremendous amount of information. What we've got to do is sweat the asset. We have got to make that work for the FOA, because at the moment it's hidden under the bushel. The proverbial light is hidden under the bushel. We've got to open it up and make it available to anybody anywhere in the world that wants information about fishers. Now, you may well be thinking, are we giving away our value? No, we won't, because there are ways that we can protect that. You know, if you go on to search of Google, you come up, for example, with an article from the New Statesman or the Times, you get a first paragraph and it says, you want to read the rest of this, subscribe here. Well, it's that sort of mechanism that I want to be looking at to draw attention to the website, show the results are valuable, and then get people to move into membership. Merchandising, we've got lots of good stuff on there. We've got arrangements with 14 suppliers as well, some very good names in there. But again, all that needs updating. There's also a page, which I would have thought was very useful, but I suspect that a lot of the answers are again on the forum. If somebody wants to know, where do I get a cutlass bearing from or whatever, or had good service or such and such, you probably go and search for that on the forum. But in fact, we've got a page which invites you to say, I've had good service from Crusader Sales, Jekyll Sales, whatever. And that's another valuable benefit of membership, but I think we need to revalidate it. So I am in no doubt whatsoever that fisherowners.org is our greatest asset, apart from subscriptions themselves. We don't make it work hard enough. And so at the committee meeting tomorrow, I'm going to discuss ways that we can improve the search function so that the search engines, Google mainly, but there are others, can find our information and we can use it effectively. And I also want, and I've had discussions with Jeff about this already, to simplify the classified sales side of things, because I know Jeff's spent an awful lot of time emailing back and forth to people who've sent in an advert, and there are details missing or whatever. And so we're going to look at a template that has a load of boxes. You can fit all the information in there, and it makes my job a whole lot easier in putting that information up in a block onto the classified site. Questions?
Sounds very good.
Rod?
In a conversation with somebody today, it was mentioned that maybe we could put an events banner on the front page of the website. Is that a possibility?
Yes. There are some changes that I want to do structurally on that, which will improve it, and it will be part and parcel of that business of making the website accessible.
Because if it's our number 2 hit on the website, then I think it's... Yes.
Well, you have got, there is a tab on the homepage that says socials and rallies.
If we could maybe consider putting in upcoming events, I think...
Yeah.
I mean, the advertisement of the
Sorry?
The advertisement of the value of the website, people who go to the website probably haven't got a sales pitch as to what the membership information, what the extra values are. And more of an advertisement, crisp advertisement for that would be helpful. But I think you're thinking of a lot of those things already, so very happy.
It's more a question of priorities. Yeah. And from the survey in particular, and also the experience I've had over the last 6 months, my focus really wants to be about sweating as I call it, sweating the asset, so that what I know people are looking for, it's there, but those who are not members can't find it. It works on the classified ads. That's the model. But when you're looking for more information about your Fisher Northeastern and how it was built, or your 34 and how somebody's fitted a bow thruster, you can only get it if you're a member. And I want to flag that and say, yeah, for 30 quid, you can find most of the answers.
So, work in progress.
Very much.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Right,
Rear Commodore's reports. Harvey isn't here, so he'll be putting his in. They'll be in the minutes in due course. Starting at the end. Rob?
Thank you. Right, South Coast. Can I start by asking a question of people gathered here today? How many of you are South Coast and Channel Island members? Okay. Well, I'd like to start with an apology. We haven't been as active as we could have been this year, and I must take responsibility for that. Insofar as I've had boat difficulties of my own this year, which meant my boat has been out of use for a good, fairly large proportion. We did, however, have a fitting out lunch, which was held in the Royal Air Force Yacht Club in Southampton, which was quite well attended. There was about 25 of us in all. Next year, I would welcome suggestions as to where, both within the Solent we could go and maybe a little further afield. There is also, as has been mentioned, the Cairn Rally, which is scheduled for June next year. I would like also maybe to fill a few other locations around the Solent. Would welcome suggestions. So the South Coast has got its own email address, by the way, which is southcoastfishers@gmail.com. So if you want to drop me a line there with any suggestions for next year. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
It's just come into my head, I'm not being clever. The Northern group have got a Facebook group, haven't they?
Yes. Scottish.
Yes.
Why don't we have a Facebook group for the Southern group, Southern Fishers?
Look into getting that organised.
Fabulous, thank you.
We do have our main Facebook group, Fisher, which you're quite welcome to post anything to do with rallies on that as a whole. So any region can post their stuff. There is 125 members using that there, so it's a good way of getting information across. Or if you want me to add the information onto it, then I've got no trouble with that at all. Okay. So if you want to make use of that sort of thing, rather than start again, because then you've got to try and get people to join. Yeah. And the idea is, with group ones, we try to keep them with so many members only. So it's taken over 10 years now to get up to 125. It will take a little while. We should get people to join. So it might be best to use what we've got.
That's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Right.
Just a reminder that I am Rear Commodore Southwest and West. The west bit is Wales and the Bristol Channel, up as far as the Turin Peninsula. Let me start by saying, endorsing what Derek said, my figures for 2015 for the region were 31 members, and now today it's 32. And of those 32 today, 3/4 of them are in Devon and Cornwall, and the other quarter are in Wales and Bristol Channel area. As to our activities, in keeping with historical practice, we have a pre-season lunch, post-season, end of season lunch. The pre-season lunch was at a delightful pub, the Cot Inn at Dartington, in April. 6 fishers were represented by a group of 8 people. And our end of season lunch was held at the Cumbarton Inn at Crackington Haven, which is on the North Cornish coast near Bude. The April event was brilliant sunshine, and the October event in Crackington Haven was drizzle and fog. We were a group of 10 people from 5 fishers at the October event, including 2 new associate members who are hunting for a fisher. Our key event was our a la carte rally in June. Rather like the a la carte menu, the idea of our a la carte rally is that you can pick and choose bits off the menu. It was advertised as a gentle jog westwards from Plymouth to the Fell, reaching a different venue each day. And the plan was to take in Tamar, Foy, Helford and the River Fell itself. 7 fishers participated in the rally. Fisher 34 Pearl Fisher, Fisher 31 Giltar, Fisher 25 Blue Dolphin, Fisher 25 Emma 2, Fisher 25 Freewood Misty Hawa, and French Fisher 30 Nout, and Fisher 31 Bluebell. I'm glad to say that 5 of those fishers, their members are here today, including Paul Grumeau from Fisher Nout, our French participant in the rally. Bienvenue, Paul.
Thank you.
I think this is the second year we've done our a la carte rally. We'll try and do a similar thing next year, but perhaps starting further eastward in Devon. I haven't been successful in stimulating much activity from the Wales and Bristol Channel part of the region, but we'll continue to have a go at that for another year. That's the take of it.
Thank you. Paul, are you doing East Coast or is Alan?
Cool, me again. Paul and Carol and I jointly look after the East Coast. Incidentally, we have a WhatsApp group and I can thoroughly recommend it. There's a very quick means of communication with members. They seem to respond very well to that. I think is it 39 in the East Coast, Derek? Sorry, I haven't got my figure in front of me.
East Coast 39, yeah.
Yes. So we had the traditional fitting out lunch in March, then a rally, 19 for lunch there. Chatham was troubled by bad weather and I didn't make it, I'm afraid. But 6 boats, Paul, and 12 for dinner there. And we finished off the year in Tollesbury with a good turnout for 19. Some very high tides which made access to Tollesbury exciting, shall we say. That's it for this year, fully reported in Fisher Light.
Okay. Cool. Right, okay, happy. Thank you very much, guys. Newsletter.
Okay. Are you going to say anything about ICM? Have we done that?
Sorry?
International Committee member.
No, not yours.
Okay. Newsletter. As hopefully most of you have seen it. Before anybody asks, I'm happy to carry on being the newsletter editor. But if anybody does want to come forward, I will happily hand it over. If you wanted to do it, take your time. Just form an orderly queue. Do you realise we've had 4 editors since 1993? Only 4. Julie Bagley, who was the wife of Morris, who sadly passed away a little while ago, she did it first. Then Tony Gurney took over. And by the way, happy golden anniversary, Tony and Christine.
Yeah.
After Tony was Andrew, and Andrew's right there. And then you got me in about 2019. Only feels like yesterday, 21 editions ago. Of those 21 editions, there were 12 lockdown editions with 152 articles and 8 Touchwood editions, so far with 76 articles. And Touchwood 9 is in the hoist and growing as I sit here. Looking at the statistics, the largest percentage of articles have been on Fisher improvements, of which there were 25%. Suggests to me that the Fisher Light newsletter is actually quite a useful thing. And I can understand probably why it doesn't get so many hits on the website, because it gets emailed to you and you get to read it. Well, it is there on the website if you happen to lose your copy. If you ever want a copy, you can ask me and I can email it to you individually. but it is there on the website as well. So I believe that Fisher Light is a valuable asset to the association, and I'm happy to carry on, unless, of course, somebody forms an orderly queue. Thank you.
Anybody want to ask any questions? Okay, right. Thanks, Steve.
First, thanks. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Just want to insert merchandise at this point. Andrew was on the committee, came off the committee, but carried on doing merchandise whilst in the intervening period, and he's going to come back on the committee. So that's fabulous news. So thank you, Andrew. Do you want to say anything about merchandise?
There's some on the table at the back. Anybody needs anything? We've sold 2 items already. Yeah, the ties. Just take them and buy it on the website later. Or transfer the money to Linda.
Well, it's an association buying it.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's not onerous to do it. I mean, they all just go through on PayPal. Linda then sends an email to me to say she's had the money and can I please send them out to people. If anybody else wants to do it, I've been doing it for probably nearly 10 years now. If anybody else wants to step up and do it, I'm delighted to hand it over. But if nobody else can use Steve words towards an orderly queue, I'll carry on doing it for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I'll do that now. Might as well.
Okay, yes, I haven't got it as an item.
I'll add another item in, the social secretary. Now, as you know, we don't actually have one at the moment, but for circumstances beyond our control, or their control, we have a volunteer, and it's not Jill, so Jill's safe. What we'll do is once we've had varying discussions and everything else, then we will co-opt that individual, hopefully, onto the committee and ratify it properly next year as we normally do. A couple of little things about tonight. We'll be in here. I think it's 6 tables of 8, is it?
6 of 8, yes.
6 of 8. There'll be there's a seating plan and everything else. It's 6:30 for 7:30.
6:30 for 7:30. Commodore's reception 6:30.
There are some drinks provided. There's not a huge amount. So if you're not early, you might find that your glass of wine isn't there anymore. It's not unlimited. There is non-alcoholic as well. I'm afraid it's only wine or wine. So if you want something different, there's a bar. And I'm afraid with the finances as they are, there's no wine on the table. So if you want to drink with your meal, you'll need to sort that out at the bar as well. So that's the plan for this evening. What I would like to do is just talk a little bit about future AGMs and dinners and their locations. As Derek has illustrated, there's a huge number in Scotland, and we were talking about perhaps Scotland next year. Harvey's not here, varying reasons. I don't think it's going to happen in Scotland. I don't think it's going to be possible. Your committee will decide tomorrow as to all these bits and pieces. I have a feeling that Scotland's not going to work. We will need to go to Scotland. We had one in Edinburgh. It was very successful. Obviously, the majority of people will come and work from Scotland, which is fabulous. So I want to float a suggestion and see what you think. We have the 55th coming up in June, July 2025. So that's going to require a lot of effort to do that. So we've got the AGM and dinner next year, 2024 and 2025. And we want to make those, I would suggest, generic want to make those 2 AGMs and dinners as easy as possible for everybody all concerned, because the effort's going to go into the 55th. Now, the suggestion I'm going to float is that what about staying in the RNLI pool for the next 2 consecutive years, so 2024, 2025, and then perhaps look at 2026 going to Scotland, and going back to the concept of regional. If you go back 18 years ago, we had a group in Corby, a series of AGMs in Corby. Not that I would recommend going back to Corby. We used to live nearby to Corby, but I would suggest that's not a good venue. So, you know, possibly coming here for the next 2 consecutive years would make it very easy to organise, and it would then allow the effort to go into the 55th. I'm not saying it's a done deal for that, but I'm just curious as to, you know, what would people be content with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry?
Not at the school's half term.
Good point.
Yeah. Yes. When they have the discussion tomorrow, they can talk about dates. The date I don't like is November the 11th, for similar reasons. And we had a spate of November 11th when I first took over, which was I was outvoted on that one. So I'm glad we tried to avoid that. But yes, I agree entirely. But that will give an option for, since we're here, before almost we leave, we could book up for the next 2 years, in which case, done deal, forget about that for a bit. So anyway, so thank you for that.
This sort of weekend,
Sorry?
this sort of clock change weekend.
Traditionally, it's end of October, beginning of November.
Clock change weekend would be a good.
Clock change weekend.
Yeah, but some schools have 2 weeks at half term. So I would forget that, because it's going to be difficult. Otherwise, you're going to go into bonfire night, and then you're going to get into remembrance day.
Anyway, it's going to sort out. But I'm glad that the concept isn't worrying you too much. Okay, right, on to item 11, approval of membership to the RYA. RYA is our overarching organisation. We get our insurance through the RYA, and oddly enough, this year I had another dialogue with RYA Legal on wording for the paragraph to be put in about rallies. So we use them, and I think they, you know, they're very useful to have that as our overarching supporting organisation. So I would like to suggest that we carry on with them. Yeah. So could I have a proposer and a seconder?
I'll propose that.
Second.
Okay, excellent. Similarly, sort of. Sorry. Seconder. Seconder. Secondly, following on for that, third-party liability insurance. Well, it's much more than that the RYA Legal are giving us. They are giving us, or we're getting from them, essentially, we plug into their sailing club insurance. Obviously, it's the way that they do our similar organisations, sailing associations like our owners associations like ourselves. We plug into the club insurance scheme. Obviously, we don't have assets. We're not doing courses, but we fall into other sort of bits and pieces that are relevant. So we have that insurance that covers us, and we also have directors' insurance, and that is equivalent for any of you involved in charities. It's the same thing as the charity trustee insurances, which I'm afraid is in my view is completely non-negotiable. You have to have it, so we have both those. So hopefully I can have a proposer and a seconder that we continue on with that. Excellent, thank I'm going to leave the election of committee members to the very end for obvious reasons, but we'll come back to that one. So on to 14. Saving events for 2024. I've talked about AGMs for 24 and 25. Jeff's talked about 55th. Steve's talked about D-Day next year.
Yeah, can I add just a little bit into that?
Yeah.
The D-Day one in the first week in June, as you've already heard me bore you to death about it being at Weestream and Conk. The difference is that this year, this rally is going to be a combined rally between the Fisher Owners Association and the Fareham Sailing and Motorboat Club, of which a couple of us are members, 3 of us are members. And when I was talking to their Commodore about what we're doing, he said, we would love to have some of that, please. So what I've done towards that is I've promulgated something to them, same as I put out in the forum and in the newsletter. And I've also had a good look through their rules and bylaws to find that they don't have an Article 8 like ours for rallies and what could be expected. So with tacit permission from our legal eagle, I sent them a copy of our Article 8 and said, you might want to have a look at this. But the rules and regulations for what we do with a rally will apply to them as well. So we will all be singing off the same hymn sheet. They're a lovely bunch of people. And I'm really looking forward to working with their Commodore and making it happen. And I hope as many of you can join us. Thank you.
Okay, and the rear Commodores will be in negotiation with the regions about next year's rallies as well. So that should cover all of future events for next year. So if we can go on to any other business. Anybody got any other business that they would like to? Committee members, anybody got any other business? No. Floor? No? Okay, right. On to election of committee members. Andrew, it'll be easier if we do this as a bit of a job lot, so rather than each one. So because there are quite a few. Andrew has very kindly agreed to rejoin the committee merchandising, so thank you very much, Andrew. We have potential of a social secretary, which we will deal with as a co-opting member and a full member properly next year. We have Tim Schneider, who is our international committee member, who joined us after last year's AGM. I discussed it at the AGM, and you allowed me to invite somebody, and Tim has joined. It was on a 1-year probation, and he did very well, and he has agreed. Hi, Tim. He has agreed to continue to do a full 3-year tour, which is fabulous news. And how that develops is going to be really, really interesting. I think it's going to be great for us. So we need Tim to come on as a full member. Harvey, who isn't here, it's his time to be renewed, and he's happy to be renewed. Brian needs to be renewed. Renewed? Do you not want to be renewed, Brian?
In more ways than one.
So Brian is happy to continue. Linda is happy to continue.
If anybody feels the need.
So Keith has reliably informed me. Yes. And Derek is happy to continue. Yep. So that is the change. So can I have a proposer and a seconder for those changes?
Go on.
You got one? Right, okay, lovely. Just so you, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, but I might not have, but my memory is what it is. All committee members are
are allowed, we decided a few years ago to allow them all to fly a minimum of an RC committee member flag. So not only do the RCs fly that flag, should they so wish, as do, for sake, let's say, editor, Andrew, Will, social secretary is able to. Derek and Linda are flying the Vice Commodore's flag in conjunction with this wonderful chap, in recognition of what they do to the committee. And
for the committee, I think.
And I just want to go a little bit further about this wonderful chap. Right, sorry. Tea and coffee is due in a couple of minutes, so we'll be very short. We're almost on time. Now, Derek, it's his post terminology is secretary, and I've been unhappy with that for a long time because there's various playing games with words, and he is certainly not a secretary. Apologies, Tony, but I think I've persuaded Derek to return his appointment as company secretary, because I love the name. It's a fabulous name. It's not really in common usage too much nowadays, is it, Tony?
Yeah,
but it much better if anybody doesn't know what a company secretary do, Google it and look it up, and you will soon understand why I've been so keen for Derek to change to be a company secretary, and or to rebadge it. And it's important for people to understand and members to understand that he is not his duties. I'm going back to military terminology. What he does for the association, it's due recognition, and I think it's also going to be very important for when he eventually gives up, his successor to understand what role he or she is taking up. So that's what we've decided to do, and I hope you're all happy with that. I think it makes sense. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Tony, are you happy, Tony?
I'd like to propose it.
Excellent. I have a proposal. Can I have a seconder? Excellent. Thank you very much. Right. Now, the final thing is that wonderful chap there.
Me.
It has been selected by the committee to take over for them.
Thank you.
So, Steve.
Yes, sir. Stand up.
That is now yours.
Thank you very much.
He is now in the chair for this evening, and tea and coffee is served. Thank you very much all for coming.
Just one more here. Before we move on, I'd just like to propose a vote of thanks to Chris. Because he's been Commodore for 12 years, as you all know. What he's done for this association is amazing. It's transformed it from something that it was into what we see it as today. He does an awful lot of work behind the scenes, talking to people, communicating with people, talking to the RYA, organising all sorts of things there. And he leaves it in such a good position, and I've really enjoyed working with him for the last 12 years as a Commodore and Secretary, but also as a very good friend. And I would just like to say thank you, Chris.
Tea and coffee. Hang on a minute, mate. Hang on. Okay, now you can have your tea and coffee.
Alan.
Bear with me.
Sounds really strange, right?
This is your scene.